वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकारेषु सर्वदा। श्री गणेशाय नमः। ओम श्री उमामहेश्वराय नमः। ओम त्र्यंबकं यजामहे सुगंधिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्। सर्वेत्र सुखिनः सन्तु सर्वे सन्तु निरामयः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात्। यत्र योगेश्वरः कृष्ण यत्र पार्थो धनुर्धरः तत्र श्रीर्विजयो भूतिर्ध्रुवा नीतिर्मतिर्मम। उद्धरेदात्मनात्मानम् आत्मानम् अवसादयेत्। आत्मैव आत्मनो बन्धुरात्मैव रिपुरात्मनः। सर्वमङ्गलमाङ्गल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थसाधिके शरण्ये त्र्यम्बके देवी नारायणि नमोऽस्तुते। या देवी सर्वभूतेषु महासरस्वती रूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः। ओम भगवते श्री स्वामी नारायणाय नमो नमः। ओम श्री लक्ष्मी नारायणाय नमो नमः। ओम श्री नर नारायणाय नमो नमः। ओम सर्वे गुरुभ्यो नमः सद्गुरुभ्यो नमः। ध्यानमूलं गुरोर्मूर्ति मंत्रमूलं गुरोर्वाक्यं पूजामूलं गुरोर्पदं मोक्षमूलं गुरोर्कृपा। We are continuing our daily exploration and exposition on the multiple paths towards God realization, towards the realization of the ultimate reality, which is described in many different ways. There are major approaches, as we have been saying: Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Mantra Yoga, Tantra Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Hatha Yoga, and other kinds of yogas are also there. As a quick reminder, the word yoga it basically means to connect. And it is implied in the word yoga that something is broken within us. And what is that something that is broken? That is energy. So in the Energy and Personal Excellence program, our goal is to reconnect all broken energy. That may be financial energy, that may be mental energy, emotional energy, relationship energy, all different kinds, spiritual energy. Energy is only one. So that is called Shakti. In Sanatana Dharma, we call that Shakti. That is Devi, Durga Devi, or Mahalakshmi Devi, or Saraswati Devi. Any of the forms. It's only one that takes different forms. And all those forms are within us. So our internal power is our wealth. Our internal power is our health. Our internal power is our well-being. Our internal power is the doorway into the Atma and the Paramatma, into the Akshara Brahma or the Akshara Dhama or Golok Dham or any place that you want to go in the spiritual world, the transcendental worlds. Our energy is the booster rocket for that. And that is the role of the Guru, Sadguru or Satpurush, as written in Vachanamrutam by Sajanand Swami Maharaj many, many times, that the Satpurush is filled with energy, is filled with power. And in fact, he's given one of the most extraordinary expositions, that Vardhanal Agni Jiva Purush. See the energy that is in the oceanic fire, the fire that erupts, the volcanic fire that erupts at the bottom from the floor of the ocean. And it lives there, and it transforms the salt water into fresh water. So this is the highest stage of a guru or Satguru or Satpurush. Vardhanal Agni. Vardhanal Agni is that fire living inside the ocean. So you can see, although the word energy is not directly used as such in Vachanamrutam, it is used maybe in some form, in some ways, but energy is always implied in everything that is spoken, in everything that is taught. So imagine, just conceptualize any guru that who is living in such a state, who is this Vardhanal Agni type, who is just charged up with the spirit of God, that Bhagavan is residing in such a being, and that intense power is there to transform human beings from the bound state into the enlightened or mukta state. That power is present in enlightened beings, in the highest level of enlightened beings. beings. So that's a central concept, because in the whole Sanatana Dharma, there's so much importance on gurus. The word guru we all know. The word guru simply means from darkness to light. Gu is darkness, ru is light. Gu is the ignorance that the Jivatma is trapped in, and the ru is the divine light of the Atma, and the Paramatma is the divinity itself. And Sadguru or Sat Guru, when you combine it together, it's Sadguru. These are the gurus that are teaching about Brahma Vidya. They are teaching about it and they're living it. So there are Brahmanishta and Kshotriya. These are two words. Brahmanishta means that they have tremendous faith that they are the Brahman. Tremendous, great strength in the faith that they are the Brahman itself. And then they are also Kshotriya. They have the ability to explain the great scriptures. But those explanations are coming from their anubhav, not just intellectualization. So those are called Brahmanishta and Kshotriya. And then there's a level beyond that is called Brahma Swarupa. Brahma Swarup Sant or sage is one who is actually living in the Brahman. The Brahman is realized, is no longer stuck within the realm of the three gunas of Maya, Sattva gun, Rajagun, Tamogun. So another way to put that is Gunatit state. Bhagavad Gita talks about Gunatit state. Advaita Vedanta talks about Gunatit state. Vishishta Advaita Vedanta talks about Gunatit state. Dvaita Vedanta talks about Gunatit state. Every scripture in the world, in some form or other, particularly in Swaminarayan Sampradaya, there's a lot of emphasis on this point. Now, many people may not know that, but there is this emphasis. And some organizations, for example, like the BAPS and some others, have a lot of emphasis on this point. That to really evolve out of the three gunas, we need to connect with a great sage, saint, or enlightened being who is beyond that. So then that connection occurs in that, and by grace of God, who is residing within the enlightened being, the Jivatma becomes a Muktatma, becomes freed from the pangs and problems of Maya. So it's a very big thing. And so the Sanatana Dharma is, as I mentioned before, it is a way of realizing the higher realization based on 10,000 years of research, experimentation, and revelation. 3 points are relevant here. Research of the rishis. They researched inside, inside themselves. Then there is experimentation. Where did the Ashtanga Yoga come from? It's experimentation from even before Patanjali, it was there. And we can experiment with it ourselves. How do we experiment with it? We can start that experiment ourselves by modifying the breath, by recognizing that our mind and our breath and our internal energy is on one link. Also by recognizing the fact that we can stabilize the mind. So the stability of the mind is something that was sought after in the past, and we seek it today also. How many mindfulness programs are there? How many meditation programs are there? Countless. And they are growing every day because humanity suffers due to the disturbances of thought. Again, disturbances of the mind, and remember the mind is 5 parts, or 5 aspects are there. That is thoughts, emotions, memories, desires, and energy. It's a simple way to understand the internal world that we all live in. And we don't want damage to that. So all of the yogic approaches, which are, as I mentioned, yoga is the connecting of energy. Ultimately, it's just all energy interconnection. When energy that is broken needs to be reconnected, refused, reintegrated back together. So, as we are wanting to do this, the path towards reconnecting all the pieces can take many different aspects. And along those lines, we have been examining Ashtanga Yoga. What exactly is Ashtanga Yoga? It's the 8 limbs of yoga. Ang means limb, like a tree that has multiple limbs. So all of these are together, and they are Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. So our goal in life is to stabilize the mind, to bring the mind into a great synchronous state, and silence the mind. Now this is an interesting thing. I'm going to give you 3 references here. There's a reference from Vedras of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, Sajanand Swami Maharaj. He's talked about silencing the mind, and he's mentioned there that if the mind becomes silent, that is the most extraordinary thing. That is, that is where that is the doorway into the spiritual dimension, into the Atma and Paramatma. So the silent mind is talked about by all the great teachers. You'll see. Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is asking Sri Krishna that this mind is so, chanchal hi manah Krishna. This mind is just unbelievably wavering so much, it's unbelievable. So to keep it steady is what we all want. Arjuna is asking that question, for all of us really. It's applicable to us. So Sri Krishna's answer there in the Gita is very beautiful. He says you must practice abhyas. You must study the mind. And then Vairagya. So I've created some recordings on Vairagya in some other places, and you can look those up in more detail. But Vairagya, in very brief, is beyond Raga and Dvesha. It is a state of evolution of the mind into a highly energetic state where all the pulling and tugging of the senses has stopped and the mind has become very, very still. That is a state of Vairagya. And in that Vairagya, it is not the rejection of the objects of the senses, it is interacting with them without entanglement. In Vachanamrutam Garada number 2, Vachanamrut, the first one, Garada Pratham number 2, this is described in detail, and I have started making some recordings on that also. But briefly, this is the whole point, that Abhyas and Vairagya. Abhyas means what? Study. This is what the rishis did thousands and thousands of years back, and that's where they discovered all the yogic process and what is the Atma and the 72,000 nadis and the 9 chakras and all kinds of things they discovered because they started to study. But what kind of study is this? It is an internal study. It is a study of the inner world. And when we start studying the inner world, things begin to open up. They begin to see galaxies and stars and all kinds of things. So that's where the idea of Pind and Brahmand came from. Pind is the physical body. Brahmand is the cosmic body, called the Virat Purush or the Brahmanda. Different names are there, or the cosmic entity. So the cosmic interconnection is always with us. In the terminology of Vedas of Swaminarayan Bhagwan, he has mentioned Veshti Veshti Deha, Samashti Deha. Veshti and Samashti. And these are actually terms in Vedanta also. Veshti means the individualized being. I feel I'm separate from others. I'm this limited being. That is called Veshti Deha. Deha means physical body in this sense. Samashti is the entire cosmic body. That is called Veshti Samashtatmak Deha. So that whole thing is one. But that is the universal body. But that universal body is also under Maya. And believe it or not, even J. Krishnamurti has talked about this in the Ending of Time dialogue with David Bohm. And so if you have to really go through those, people who are students of Krishnamurti would need to really look at that carefully. He's even talked about that beyond the universal there's the eternal life. So even someone like him has talked about this. Now obviously in Vachanamrutam this is already explained in such a tremendous way that inside Akshara Brahma, in one pore of Akshara Brahma, there are infinite number of these universes. Ananta Koti Brahmand. Each Brahmand has 14 lokas, and there's infinite number of these lokas, infinite number of these Brahmands within Akshara Brahma. This idea, we read about this idea, but it's not just an idea, it's an evolution, it's a discovery as we leave the confines of the limited mind. This is what the rishis did. That's where the scriptures came from. They left the confines of the limited mind in deep meditation. In the caves or in the mountains and in nature, they were not living in an egocentric space. That is the glory of being in nature and glory of spiritual exploration. But again, in today's world, how do we do it? We have to do it in a little different way. We can go to parks, we can go to gardens, we can go to different temples, we can do all those things, balance things out. Most people are living a householder life, so then there's a lot of other responsibilities. But the whole purpose of the householder life, and I just want to mention this here, The whole purpose of the householder life is to get beyond it. It's not to be stuck in it. That's the whole point of Vairagya. Vairagya is where you are not going to be stuck inside the householder life. The householder life called Grahasthashram, it gives the experience of the limited sansar, and through the experience there is a realization that there is not constant happiness in attachment. There is only attachment and limitation. Not that one is living a householder life with suffering. No. Householder life is the most extraordinary thing. When there's only love there, then there is no issue of householder or anything else. But there is it is an opportunity to experience the material world within a certain range, and then to go further into the what's called Vanprasthashram and then Sannyasashram. One is then keeping attention only on God, because everything is going to go. No family members are going to come with us, no money is going to come with us, the body is not going to come, nothing, not even one tiny subatomic particle is going to come with us. So what's going to come with us? Only our Atma, only me, the Atma, the Jivatma, and then the attention should be on God. Ante Yamati Sagati. The Vachanamrut, Garada number 14, and its title is that Ante Yamati Sagati. It's a Shruti, that's a verse actually from the Vedas. That whatever mental state you have developed at the end of one's life, the cumulative state, that's where that will lead to the next experience, for the Jivatma after leaving this body. So it's called Ante Yamati Sagati. And that's a big discussion. Some other time we go into all that. The point is that we want to silence the mind. We want to live a beautiful life. We want to have a very nice householder life or student life or whatever stage anybody's in, without creating trouble and problems and difficulties. And to do that, the Sanatana Dharma provides the extraordinary framework for doing just this thing. And it is one of such evolutions where the rishis researched inside. Now remember one thing, the evolution further into the chakras and into the Brahmand and beyond the Brahmand and all those things, those are very deep states of meditation and realization. So if one's attention is towards God and wants to see God face to face, that kind of intensity is very different from simply believing in God. So as we are talking about Ashtanga Yoga, the last stage in Ashtanga Yoga is Samadhi. The Samadhi is the Anubhav. You're in that realization of the divine light and God and all those things. Whatever is happening in Samadhi, there is such a tremendous realization. And then one comes out of it again and then continues to do the work in the world as a service to the world, as a seva. So one might be wondering also, what in the world is the point of all of this? If we go into Samadhi or you're doing this, withdrawal of the senses and pratyahar and dharana, we will talk about all that in detail later, some other time. But what is the aim? The aim is to live a very balanced, beautiful life of intense realization, even while the body is there. It is samadhi-filled life without trance. Without going into Samadhi, one has that kind of Samadhi here. This question is also asked by Muktanand Swami in the Vachanamrutam to Maharaj. He asked that question. How can one have that same enlightenment and bliss and enjoyment and peace and without Samadhi while living? Samadhi without Samadhi, like that. So the answer is very, very clear. The answer is to have the presence of God everywhere. Maharaj said that, that if you are so deeply convinced of the presence of Paramatma in your Sadguru, within yourself, all around you, then that is Samadhi. Even though one is living in the waking state and dream state and deep sleep, even though those three states are there, they are not experienced in an entangled or confused or with any type of influence of the causal body. And that's the difference. So that is living liberation, living enlightenment, Jivan Mukti, Videhi Mukti. Different types of Mukti are described. Sampragnat Samadhi, Asampragnat Samadhi, Nirvikalpa Samadhi. These are states of living. Yes, you may have outside the body experience, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, sure. At that time, there is no causal body. But when you're coming back into the body, body is going to remain. Body is there for a purpose. Body is not there just to be extinguished. Body is a means to an end. See, so there's a beautiful Vachanamrut, Vartal number 20 Vachanamrut, where Sajanand Swami Maharaj, he has explained so beautifully about even the limitations of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, which is something probably not described in any other scripture. I haven't read it. If you have, you let me know. Limitations of Nirvikalpa Samadhi is that yes, you may have Nirvikalpa Samadhi. You may feel that you're beyond Maya and everything, but when you come back into the body, again desires and other attachments can start again. Well, how can that be? But there are plenty of incidences of that happening, and Maharaj was very observant and he was aware of all that. So then he said that even better than Nirvikalpa Samadhi is living in this world like the way King Janaka lived, with Sankhya and Yoga completely integrated. Sankhya is that there is the realization that everything is temporary and ephemeral, non-attachment, pure Vairagya. And Yoga is the internal integration of energy all the time while performing all activity. And when you're in such a state, then you're performing bhakti. But you're not performing bhakti to get somewhere. You're performing bhakti for the joy of bhakti. If you're doing some yoga, you're not doing it to get somewhere. You're doing it because of the joy of yoga. If you're concentrating on an image of God like Sri Krishna or Bhagwan Shiv or Devi or some particular guru, or those who believe in Sri Swaminarayan, they might be worshipping the Hare Krishna Maharaj. Those who believe in Sai Baba, they might be worshipping Sai Baba. Whatever they're worshipping, whatever it might be. But the point is, it is done with joy. It is not done to get somewhere. And so that is living Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So when one is living Nirvikalpa Samadhi, you are just enjoying deeply the bhakti and knowledge and satsang, and you're enjoying everything, the nature, because it is a samadhi without samadhi. It is a living samadhi. And there is such a state. In Vachanamrut also this is described, that such an enlightened being, wherever that person looks, sees God everywhere. You see? It's there. I think it's like Loya, in one of the Loya Vachanamrut. Loya is a small village, by the way. You may have never heard of that. It's a tiny little village, and some of the most extraordinary spiritual talks have been given in these small villages by Maharaj in the Vachanamrutam. So these are some of the most beautiful ideas. So as we're moving ahead with Ashtanga Yoga, trying to understand it, yesterday we were talking about ahimsa. I just want to make some comments today about the second part, that is Satya. Satyam param dhimahi. Srimad Bhagavatam talks about Satya, that God is Satya, truthfulness. To be genuine with oneself is the key thing. There's no need to distort oneself. People are lying to themselves and lying to others and distorting everything. Then that causes energy damage. No, just remain simple. Remain straightforward. There's no need to keep twisting and turning and distorting things and with falsehoods and all. What is the point of all that? There's no point. So Satyam is the second part in the yamas. So in the yama state of the Ashtanga Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga begins with yam. So these are external disciplines. So ahimsa, we talked about yesterday. Satyam is truthfulness, being so clear. Being so transparent, total transparency in life. That leads to great joy, great joy. And that doesn't happen. We're always trying to hide something or cover something up or distort something or trying to present ourselves in some other way that we're not. All of this thing is a movement away from the Atma into the entrapments of Maya. So Satya is the second of the 5 yamas. So the 5 yamas are ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, and aparigraha. Yama is like discipline. It's a way of disciplining. It's a certain type of external discipline leading to internal discipline. Now some people will say, well, why do we need discipline in life? Well, why not? What's wrong with discipline? If you have some good discipline, it will make our life better. And if you don't have discipline, it will be chaos. Now, of course, there is a natural discipline that shows up when you are in a choiceless awareness state. That's a different matter. We'll talk about that some other time. And those who are students of J. Krishnamurti stuff, which may be possible for those who are listening to this, that discipline he's talking about is a different matter. That is where where you are in choiceless awareness. In Gujarati language, that is called Janpanu. In Vachanamrutam, that is called Janpanu. And if you're in that Janpanu, if you're aware all the time, you see the presence of Paramatma and aware of the presence of the Satpurush and Guru within you, outside of you, then the discipline is natural. You don't have to do something for that discipline. The mind resets automatically. So that's a very interesting and very powerful idea, to start with that end point in mind. So if we start with that end point, that I am constantly aware of what I'm doing, where am I going, what I'm thinking, a continuous awareness is there. That's called Akhanda Janpanu in Gujarati. And choiceless awareness is exactly the same thing. But choiceless awareness is there, but then what do you do with choiceless, or something to be done? So then you do bhakti. So performing devotional practice, the 9 forms of devotion we talked about already extensively, that is to be done. If that is done, then one is just swimming in joy, swimming in ananda, because that's where the ananda. Vairagya doesn't have ananda in it. Even Jnana has some wisdom. It has wisdom and ananda, and maybe some anandam is there, but real ananda is through bhakti only. It's a devotional practice, it's love. Now one may say, like Adi Shankaracharya, love for knowledge. Yeah, there is that joy that comes from insight and awareness and realizing that you are the Brahman and the Atma. In that sense, there is that joy of knowledge. But at the same time, we are not dry people, we have emotion. So the emotion is able to take a leap ahead, a dimensional leap forward into what is called Prem Lakshana Bhakti, into this, from Sadhana Bhakti to Prem Lakshana. That is where the flow of emotion is continuously divine. It's a divine flow, Divya Bhav. You will notice enlightened sages, their emotions are constantly flowing, but those emotions are love only. There's forgiveness, tolerance. These are divine emotions. That's called Divya Bhav. Not the mixed up bhav that we have. Divya Bhav is very different. Divya Bhav is where there is no disturbance of this emotional flow. And that is why, to get to that stage, all these things in Ashtanga Yoga are necessary. Even if one doesn't have a teacher, you can still take a lot from here. Yeah, in the asana and pranayama, in those stages, you really should have a teacher to guide properly. But even that can be done lightly, and as I mentioned before, doing bhakti will bypass a lot of that, because it'll stabilize the inner system very naturally. Right, so that's good enough for today. We'll continue talking about some of these other ones in the yamas as we move along further. Thank you.